All right, guys. So welcome to this week's activity. So this week you are going to be picking a poem on pages 431. If you look at your textbook, page 431, 432, 433, and 434 have a list of various types of poems. If for some reason you would like to choose something that is not in the text, please just run it by me. But it should be something relative that, if you look at the top, it says poems for young children. So if it's not a poem that does come from the text, I would recommend that you search that for a title that would be suitable for young children so that they could understand it as well. So for my example, I chose the poem Caterpillar, which is on the first page on page 431. If you can kind of read through it as you look through your text. You do not have to do that one, but that is the one I'm doing my example on. You can choose any of them. I thought that one had a good amount of visual representation that I could use for my poem. So that's why I chose it. So if you look here, I'm not going to, oops, excuse me. I'm not going to actually do the activity because this did take a little bit of time. But I wanted to show you kind of my completion, and then I'll kind of take you through a few steps and kind of give you some ideas and materials. So I completed my comic series. You need to do at least 6 boxes. You can do more, you can do 8, 12, 20, however many you want to do, but I do want to see a minimum of at least 6 boxes here of drawings. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. In the instructions, I said you can either do like a comic strip version, or you could do something more similar to a storyboard. So depending on what level or grade level you may specifically be working with, this can also be adapted. I know a couple people said that when they went on, they may be working on secondary education. So you could definitely use this as well in secondary education and just kind of adapt it to your subject level or an activity or assignment that you're using. But you do, like I said, you want to think about the grade level that you are adhering to. So I'll go over this and then I'll give you a couple different examples you could use if you want to use this activity for different levels that you're working with. So for this, I would recommend a ruler, or you can use your text or some kind of book that has a straight edge so you can get those nice straight lines. A pencil, I would definitely use a pencil at least to get your ideas down and to do your kind of initial sketch. And then you can choose your medium. I use colored pencils for mine, but you are welcome to use watercolor paint or other paint. You can use markers, crayons, if you want to use oil pastels, chalk, charcoal, whatever you want to use. I would prefer color, but if you really want to do black and white, you can. Just make sure that it's fairly nicely detailed with your drawings. And when I say detailed, I'm not, you don't have to be Picasso necessarily, but I don't want you to just kind of like draw a circle and a smiley face. Like if you're going to do black and white, make sure that you're showing detail. So you can do that with pen, charcoal, pencil, etc. So once you have your medium picked out and you have your pencil and your ruler, I would recommend, this is my kind of planning board that I did. So I did this first actually. So what I did is I knew I was only going to do 6 squares. So I was like, okay, I picked my poem. I picked the caterpillar poem from page 431. And then I actually went in to the poem. I can go back and show you this. Go back to the text really quick. Hold on a second. And I kind of picked out some key phrases from the text that I used. So I read through it, it was like a warm, fuzzy caterpillar on a summer day. So I kind of went through and picked out some key things. I don't know if you can see it, but I made like a little mark here, where it says he was found in a comfy bed. And that was one of the blocks I did on my comic strip. So you want to go in and pick out a couple key phrases. So for me, I needed to pick out kind of 6 key phrases or images or visuals that I wanted to include. I don't know, you guys might not be able to necessarily mark in your textbook, but if you maybe take a pencil, maybe lightly, or you can maybe use like sticky notes or something and kind of indicate parts that you want to use. So definitely read through the poem. It might, like I had to read through mine a couple times, even though it is, a pretty short poem. You want to be sure what you want to draw exactly and make sure that it represents. So if you're doing the caterpillar drawing, or excuse me, the caterpillar poem as you're drawing, you obviously should have some type of a caterpillar represented in there. So, this is about a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. But, like this one is about rabbits. So if you're going to do rabbits, then you probably shouldn't have a caterpillar in there unless you're just adding a lot of little extra details. So you should definitely, it might be a little different based on what you decide to do, but it should represent the title that you've chosen to do. So once you've read and you've kind of picked out your visuals, I kind of went through, I'm going to leave my book here so I can kind of explain. I went through and I kind of picked out some key phrases. So you can see here, this was a little bit more of a storyboard because I've got my lines underneath here. So I picked out the part where it says, he, on a summer's day, he wriggled and wriggled and wriggled. So I kind of drew a sun where they did this. And then I went to this one where it said he wanted some nice green leaves to chew on. So I kind of did that part. Here is the part that I showed you. I also marked. It says he found a comfy bed and curled up tight in a warm little wrap. So I kind of have the caterpillar worm wrapped up in these two leaves. And then this was, it said he slept and slept and slept until one day he woke and broke from his shell. So this is where I have part of a wing. Oops, I'm sorry, my hand's covering. This is where I have part of a wing coming out from a cocoon. Once again, this is just my planning board, as you can see that I wrote right here. And then it says he stretched and stretched and stretched. So this is when he officially kind of gets out of the cocoon. And then it says he flew away and he flew into the sun all day. So then that was my final post. So once I got that, I came to here, and then as you can see, I finalized everything very nicely. So I would recommend taking your ruler, dividing your paper into your even sections. Like I said, if you're going to do 6, 8, however you're going to do it, so that you have those nice straight lines as you create your boxes, however many you're deciding to do. Once you have that, you can do, if you've looked at if you haven't seen a comic strip before, you haven't looked at them in a really long time. Some comic strips will have, wording in here, like this one says, wow, look at these wings. So I wanted to include that, or you can have you can kind of rewrite the sentence underneath. That's what I did. So I didn't copy. It says here, the caterpillar wiggled his way through a warm sunny day. And if we go back to the poem, it says, on a fuzzy wuzzy caterpillar on a summer day wriggled and wriggled and wriggled on his way. So I just kind of reworded that a little bit. And that's what I did for each of these. And then I included this kind of little ad lib here. And then here I included a little bit of a dreaming, the caterpillar dreaming of becoming a butterfly. So that's kind of the basis of what I want you guys to do. Hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory, pretty basic. So when you're doing this, or if you choose to do this activity with students, if you're working with very small students, like kindergarten, or if you're even working with like 0 to 5 or 0 to 6, or anyone that's, more on the younger end of the scale for elementary, you might not want them to draw their own template. They may not have the coordination necessarily yet, or they may get confused, or unless you have an assistant or something in your classroom or help. So you could either pre-draw the templates for them, or you could probably find a template to use that already has boxes drawn out and maybe even has lines underneath. So, that could be based on maybe older kids, upper elementary, or if you're going into secondary education, they could probably draw, or they, if you give them a kind of pre-lined paper, they, or somewhat they might be able to kind of fill it in and finish it. But, you can base that off of your class if you decide to use this activity. Another part of this activity that you could use for students is whether you choose to do more of the comic strip or whether you go more in the storyboard direction. And depending on, once again, the student level and the activity you're using this for, in terms of literacy, reading, and writing, you could actually have the students copy the sentence directly. So, if we go, like I said, this sentence is based off the first sentence of the poem that I used. So you could have them copy that sentence directly, either underneath the image that they drew, underneath the image they draw, or you could have them rewrite that on a separate piece of paper. And that just kind of helps with reading and writing. Yes, they are copying, but just like in art, sometimes copying a technique doesn't necessarily mean that you're not being original. You're just trying to get them to understand the foundation of what they're doing. So you could have students copy a sentence directly from the poem, and help them kind of coordinate that sentence to the visual that they may be drawing. Or you could do what I did, and you could kind of have them summarize. Obviously, that still may be a little extreme, even for upper elementary levels. But you could see maybe, how their creativity works or how they can reword things, maybe on a smaller scale. So that's a couple different things you could do. So like I said, you may want to have a pre-drawn or pre-printed template for certain grade levels. And then you could work on spelling, or you could have them just do a couple writing, or you could have them come up with their own little ad libs or their own kind of little wording for it. You could also have them do that part in groups. So they could all individually draw something, and then they could bring the story together. So a couple different ways that you could take this activity if you decide to use it for your students. But for you guys, like I said, at least 6 boxes. Have either kind of a sentence underneath, or you can have kind of a story going on, between characters or drawings or whatever you decide to do for your activity. Preferably color, or at least very detailed black and white drawing. You can use the medium that you prefer. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me, and I hope you enjoy this activity.